The underestimated fleet. In the vastness of the galaxy, few things were as common as arrogance. Across the stars, countless civilizations had risen and fallen, and many believed themselves to be untouchable, invincible. The aliens of the Galactic Council were no exception. They had conquered countless worlds, defeated powerful species, and controlled vast territories, all without a single real challenge to their dominance. So when they came across a fleet of ships from a species known as humans, they couldn't help but laugh. The humans were an anomaly. Primitive, barely out of their solar system, and certainly not a threat. Their ships were small, their weapons outdated, and their tactics predictable. The galactic leaders had heard rumors, whispers about humans being fierce, but they dismissed them. After all, no one feared a few dozen ships when entire fleets of thousands could wipe them out in an instant. The humans' fleet had been spotted at the edge of a distant sector, where the great galactic powers rarely ventured. The Alien Council had sent a single fleet to investigate. It was a simple mission: show the humans their place in the grand order of things. These upstart species had no business challenging the authority of the galaxy's mightiest races. The aliens' fleet was massive, a behemoth of warships, each one bristling with the latest weaponry and shield technology. They carried the advanced tactics that had crushed civilizations before. But as they approached the human fleet, a strange feeling began to creep into the hearts of the alien commanders. For the first time in years, they weren't certain of their superiority. From a distance, the human fleet looked even smaller than expected. Only a few dozen ships, no larger than what the humans called capital ships, some of which seemed battered and old. The aliens couldn't help but smirk as they prepared their attack. Surely, this would be over in minutes. As the alien ships advanced, they expected the humans to run or beg for mercy. They were unprepared for what happened next. The humans did not flee. Instead, they formed up in perfect battle formation, their ships moving with an unexpected precision. The alien commanders took their positions, confident that their sheer firepower would overpower the humans in seconds. But then something curious happened. The humans didn't fire back immediately. At first, the aliens were confused. What was this strange tactic? Had the humans lost their nerve? They watched as the human ships seemed to simply wait. It was as if they were calmly biding their time. In the vastness of space, seconds stretched into what felt like hours. Then, without warning, the silence shattered. A single ship from the human fleet fired a burst of energy, a blast so powerful that it sent ripples through the alien fleet's shields. The blast wasn't the kind of energy the aliens had expected. It wasn't raw power or brute force. No, this was something more. Calculated. The energy was focused, precise. It bypassed their shields with ease, hitting their hulls directly. One of the alien ships exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The alien fleet was stunned. For a moment, no one spoke. The alien commanders stared at the wreckage of their ship, unable to comprehend what had just happened. A tiny human ship had just destroyed a vessel that had once been considered invincible. How could this be? How could something so small and insignificant cause such devastation? Before they could fully process what had occurred, the human fleet struck again. This time, more ships joined in, each one firing coordinated bursts of energy that pierced through the alien fleet's advanced defenses. The shock was overwhelming. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were attacking with a precision and ruthlessness that left the alien commanders scrambling for a response. The human ships seemed to anticipate every move the aliens made. No matter how fast the aliens tried to retreat, the humans were there. They were fast. They were precise. They were relentless. Panic began to spread among the alien ranks. The humans, these primitive beings, were not only putting up a fight, they were winning. And the longer the battle went on, the clearer it became. The humans weren't simply skilled. They were using tactics that no one had ever seen before. Their ships seemed to predict every move, as if they could read the minds of their enemies. The aliens could not understand how these tiny ships were doing so much damage. It didn't make sense. One by one, the alien ships began to fall, their enormous size no longer a guarantee of survival. In the distance, the human fleet continued to advance, tearing through the once mighty armada. The aliens had thought they would wipe out the humans without even breaking a sweat. Instead, they were now the ones retreating, their forces in disarray. The few remaining alien ships attempted to regroup and counterattack, but it was no use. The humans were everywhere. Their ships darted in and out of enemy formations, striking with deadly precision. The once confident alien fleet had become a panicked mass, frantically trying to protect itself from the unexpected onslaught. The truth was becoming clear. The tiny human fleet was not a joke, and it was far from weak. The aliens had underestimated them. And now, they were paying the price. As the last few alien ships tried to flee, the humans' fleet followed. No mercy was given. No escape was allowed. The battle, which had seemed so one-sided at the start, was quickly turning into a one-sided massacre. The humans had struck with a fury that no one had anticipated, and the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. The human fleet had started small, seemingly insignificant, but as the smoke of battle cleared, it was the alien armada that lay in ruins. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, and now they would learn that the humans were not to be trifled with. The small fleet had turned into a weapon that shook the very foundations of the galaxy, and the aliens would never make the mistake of underestimating humanity again. The relentless assault. The aftermath of the initial skirmish sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The alien fleet, once confident in its power, was in disarray. The fleet commanders could hardly believe what had just happened. They had anticipated an easy conquest, but instead they had faced an enemy that refused to be intimidated and fought back with incredible ferocity. The humans' fleet, though smaller in number, had shown no signs of slowing down. They pressed forward with a single-minded determination. Each human ship seemed to have a purpose, each attack well calculated, each movement precise. The aliens scrambled to regroup, but the humans' tactics were unlike anything they had ever encountered. The first wave of human strikes had been unexpected, but now the alien commanders knew they were up against something far more dangerous than a ragtag group of ships. They had underestimated the humans' strategic genius. The aliens were accustomed to overwhelming their enemies with superior numbers and firepower, but they had never faced an adversary that could match them in tactical brilliance. The human fleet's ships darted in and out of formation, striking from unexpected angles and exploiting every weakness in the alien defense. Their technology was not the most advanced, but it didn't need to be. The humans used what they had with ruthless efficiency. They fought not with raw strength, but with precision and guile, turning every disadvantage into an opportunity. At the heart of the battle was a human commander, a young officer whose name had become known across the galaxy in a matter of hours, Captain Elias Carter. His rise had been swift, but no one doubted his capability now. His decisions on the battlefield were precise. Every move thought out before the enemy even had a chance to react. Captain Carter had learned the art of war not from the holoscreens or simulation programs, but from history itself. The ancient strategies of human conflict were his guide. He had studied the tactics of warriors who fought with limited resources but overwhelming willpower. And now he applied those tactics to the most advanced fleet in the galaxy, turning the alien advantage into a weakness. As the battle raged on, the humans continued their onslaught. The alien ships were no longer operating as a cohesive unit. They were scattered, retreating in disarray, as human ships closed in on them from all sides. For every alien ship that managed to flee, 2 more were destroyed in the relentless assault. What truly struck the alien commanders was the ruthlessness with which the humans fought. They didn't hesitate. They didn't show mercy. Every shot fired was deliberate, and every maneuver was designed to put the human fleet in the most advantageous position. The aliens, who had once believed they could easily crush these so-called primitive humans, were now in a panic, their lines crumbling. The tiny human fleet continued to make its presence felt. The aliens couldn't shake the feeling that there was something else at play here, a strategy beyond their understanding. No matter how much superior technology they used, the humans always seemed to anticipate their next move, countering it with devastating force. In the midst of this chaos, the human fleet commander never wavered. Captain Carter's calm presence in the chaos of the battle was a testament to the discipline of the human forces. His eyes were sharp, his mind calculating every decision. He knew that victory wasn't just about power, it was about taking advantage of every moment, every opening. The human ships continued their deadly dance, swiftly dismantling the alien forces one by one. Their attacks were not chaotic. They were controlled and relentless. As the humans advanced, they closed in on the alien fleet's command ship, the heart of the alien forces. It was a bold move, but Captain Carter knew that eliminating the command ship would scatter the rest of the alien forces. It would be the final blow. The alien commanders, realizing they were losing control, tried to regroup around the command ship, but it was too late. The human fleet had already taken advantage of their vulnerability. With perfect precision, the human ships launched a coordinated strike that tore through the alien command ship's defenses. The blast was felt across the battlefield, and the massive command ship disintegrated in a spectacular explosion. For the aliens, it was the final nail in the coffin. Their command structure had collapsed, and without their leadership, the alien fleet had no direction, no strategy left. The humans had crushed them, not with overwhelming numbers or brute force, but with tactical brilliance and sheer determination. In the aftermath, the remaining alien ships fled in all directions. The battle, which had started as a sure victory for the aliens, had turned into a humiliating defeat. The tiny human fleet, outnumbered and underestimated, had utterly decimated their forces. The galaxy was left in shock as word spread of the humans' victory. The once mighty alien armada had been brought to its knees by a fleet that should have been no match for them. The battle was over, but the repercussions would echo across the galaxy for years to come. The humans had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. No longer would they be dismissed as weak or insignificant. No longer would the galaxy underestimate them. The humans had shown the universe just how terrifying they could be, and their enemies would remember that lesson forever. You said, the aftermath of the battle. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. The aftermath of the battle left the universe in shock and disbelief. News of the defeat spread like wildfire, and countless alien factions began questioning everything they thought they knew about humanity. A tiny fleet, barely a fraction of the size of the invaders, had not only stood their ground, but had completely annihilated the most powerful force in the galaxy. This victory changed everything. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy was abuzz with rumors and speculation. How had the humans done it? How had they managed to defeat an enemy so much more advanced, both in technology and numbers? The alien worlds that had once mocked humanity now feared them. Everyone had underestimated the strength of human will, but now, no one dared to make that mistake again. The human fleet, now revered as a symbol of both strength and cunning, stood in the shadow of their victory. However, their triumph came at a cost. Many ships had been damaged during the battle, and some of their crew members had fallen. But the humans were not ones to dwell on defeat. They immediately began repairs, using every available resource to ensure their fleet was operational again. Even as they celebrated their victory, they remained vigilant, knowing that the galaxy would not simply let them go unchallenged for long. The alien factions that had watched the battle unfold were now scrambling. They had learned a harsh lesson. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Even those who had previously believed in their superiority were now rethinking their strategies. Some factions chose to ally with humans, hoping to win their favor after witnessing the humans' fearsome capabilities. Others, realizing that they could not defeat the humans on their own, began to form coalitions, hoping that unity would give them a fighting chance. Despite the new alliances that were forming, the humans remained cautious. They knew that their victory, while impressive, was only the beginning. The galaxy was full of powerful enemies, and the humans had only shown a fraction of what they were capable of. Captain Carter, the commander of the fleet, knew that they needed to stay sharp. There would be no time to rest on their laurels. The universe was unpredictable, and humanity's enemies would not forgive them for this defeat easily. On the human side, the victory was a turning point. The once fractured human nations had united in the face of the threat. They had fought together, and they had won. The pride and spirit of humanity had been forged in the fires of war, and now they stood stronger than ever before. Leaders from every corner of human civilization gathered to discuss the future. They knew they needed to prepare for what was to come. Captain Carter became a legend in his own right. His name was spoken with reverence, and every soldier under his command was inspired by his leadership. He had seen the aliens' strengths and weaknesses, and he understood their strategies. His ability to predict their moves, to anticipate their every action, had been the key to the human success. His victory would go down in history as one of the greatest military triumphs the universe had ever seen. But even as the humans celebrated, the threat of future conflict loomed. The alien factions that had been humbled were not likely to forgive or forget the defeat, and as word of humanity's victory spread, more powerful enemies began to take notice. The battle with the alien fleet had shown the galaxy that humanity was not only capable of defending itself, but also of taking the fight to its enemies with lethal precision. As the human fleet rebuilt and rearmed, they prepared for the inevitable. The galaxy was not going to sit idly by while humans enjoyed their victory. But the humans had something their enemies did not: an unyielding spirit. They would fight for their place in the galaxy. They would fight for their survival. The defeat of the alien fleet had made one thing abundantly clear: humanity was not weak. Humanity was not something to be taken lightly. The tiny fleet that had once been laughed at had now become the most feared force in the galaxy. The galaxy would never forget the lesson they had learned that day. And as the human fleet set its course for the future, they knew one thing for certain: no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them with the same determination, the same cunning, and the same strength that had brought them to this point. The galaxy had just witnessed the true power of humanity, and it would never be the same again. The rising tension. As the days passed after the battle, a heavy silence hung over the galaxy. The unexpected victory of the human fleet had shaken the foundations of intergalactic power. Once, the humans had been considered little more than a curiosity, a young species in a galaxy dominated by older, far more advanced civilizations. But now, humanity had proven that they were not to be underestimated, and the consequences of that lesson were beginning to reverberate through the stars. Alien factions that had once scoffed at the notion of human strength were now scrambling to adjust to the new reality. Some, particularly the most powerful empires, were in denial. They insisted that the human success had been a fluke, the result of lucky circumstances and fortunate tactics. But deep down, they knew the truth. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted, and it was a shift that could not be ignored. As intelligence from human sources spread, it became clear that the humans were not going to sit back and rest on their laurels. They were already preparing for the next phase of their expansion, a phase that would see them standing on equal footing with any other galactic power, if not surpassing them. A large portion of the galaxy's most influential factions now saw humanity not as an up-and-coming species, but as an existential threat. The weapons they had displayed in the battle against the alien fleet, the strategies they had employed, and the raw tenacity of the humans had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. Many felt that if humanity was allowed to grow unchecked, it would become the ultimate destabilizing force in the galaxy. To the leaders of these factions, the solution was clear: humanity needed to be neutralized before it could become a true power. The galaxy's most powerful leaders met in secret, forming alliances and conspiring to curb humanity's rise. They would work together to contain this dangerous species, to force them back into their place before they could wreak havoc across the stars. But what these leaders failed to understand was that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its technology or military might. It wasn't even its strategic genius. Humanity's true strength lay in something much more profound. The sheer will to survive, to fight, to never back down, no matter the odds. Meanwhile, within the human ranks, there was no sign of hesitation. Captain Carter and his fleet were already pushing forward. They had won the battle, but it was clear that this was only the beginning of a much larger conflict. Humanity would need to be ready for the coming storms. If the galaxy was coming for them, they would meet it head-on. Human diplomats, once considered nothing more than negotiators and peacekeepers, were now being asked to take on roles of unparalleled importance. They were charged with negotiating alliances, trying to secure the support of neutral factions, and most importantly, ensuring that humanity's interests were protected from the growing threats. Back home on Earth, public sentiment was split. Some celebrated the victory, seeing it as a sign of humanity's rightful place in the stars. The war had proven their strength, and now they could begin to build their future among the stars. However, there were others who feared the consequences of their newfound power. They feared the alien retaliation that would inevitably come, and the possibility that their species would be drawn into a galactic war of unimaginable scale. As the human fleet prepared for future engagements, the sense of unease was palpable. Ships were refitted and updated with advanced weapons systems and shielding. The battle-hardened soldiers and fleet officers were already in training, preparing for the next stage of conflict. Even the civilians, who had never before been involved in interstellar warfare, were now preparing for what they might have to face in the future. Everyone knew that this was no longer a game of politics or diplomacy. Humanity had become part of the galactic power structure, whether they were ready for it or not. Back in space, the enemy fleets began to stir. Slowly, covert operations began to target humanity's strategic outposts, and the first skirmishes took place in the darkest reaches of space. These weren't full-scale wars, yet, but they were a sign of what was to come. The galaxy was testing humanity's resolve, probing for weaknesses, and learning more about the species that had dared to defy the established order. But humanity, as always, was ready. The resolve that had once driven them to the stars, to overcome their limitations and thrive, now pushed them forward, ready for the battles that lay ahead. They had seen what it took to win the impossible battle, and they were prepared to face whatever threats came their way. In the dark corners of the galaxy, enemies plotted and conspired. But in the heart of humanity's fleet, there was no fear, only determination. Humanity had made its mark, and now the galaxy would have to live with the consequences. The rising tension was palpable. A new chapter in galactic history was unfolding, and humanity was at the center of it all. The question was no longer if they could survive, but how far they would go, and how much the galaxy was willing to risk to stop them. One thing was certain: humanity's rise had only just begun. The first response. The galaxy was a quiet place in the aftermath of the unexpected battle. The great fleets of alien civilizations that had once towered over all other species now found themselves haunted by the reality of a new growing power. Humanity had proven it could stand toe-to-toe with the galaxy's mightiest, and the implications of that truth were weighing heavily on every corner of the galaxy. What was once an inconsequential species was now something far more dangerous, and no one could deny it. Despite the efforts of some factions to ignore humanity's growing influence, others were taking immediate action. The first response came not from the largest empires or the most powerful species in the galaxy, but from the Confederation of Starborn, a group of mid-tier civilizations that had long feared humanity's potential. They understood that if humanity's fleet were to continue to grow unchecked, it would eventually upset the balance of power across the galaxy. A summit was called, convening the top minds of the Confederation. The leaders met in secret, hidden within a vast space station located deep within a nebula, far from prying eyes. There they discussed their options, weighed the dangers, and debated what could be done to prevent humanity from becoming the galaxy's most terrifying force. There was no denying it. Humanity was resourceful, adaptable, and surprisingly powerful. They had not only defeated an alien fleet, but they had done so with tactics that confounded their enemies. Humanity's unpredictability was their greatest strength, and that made them far more dangerous than any of the Confederation's previous foes. One by one, the leaders of the Confederation proposed their own solutions. Some suggested a diplomatic approach. After all, humanity had made its mark on the galaxy and might be convinced to cooperate. Others favored a more aggressive stance, believing that the only way to keep humanity in check was through force. But all agreed on one thing: humanity's rise could not be ignored, and they needed to take action before it was too late. At the same time, the galaxy's largest and most advanced empires began to react. This Terry Empire, once the undisputed rulers of their sector, now found themselves in an uncomfortable position. Their fleets were powerful, but not invincible. They had seen humanity's ingenuity in action and understood that it could not be underestimated. Their solution was to dispatch their most trusted general, Lord Velgar, to lead a mission to monitor humanity's movements and to take action if necessary. Lord Velgar, a battle-hardened veteran of hundreds of skirmishes, was the perfect choice for the task. His experience and cunning made him one of the most dangerous figures in the galaxy. His fleet, a formidable force equipped with the latest weaponry and technology, would serve as a powerful deterrent should humanity become too bold. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Captain Carter and his fleet were preparing for what they knew was coming. They understood that the galaxy would not sit idly by it while humanity expanded its influence. While they had won the first battle, they knew it was only the beginning. They were no longer just a part of the galaxy. They were now a significant player, and that made them a target. Humanity's response to the rising tension was measured but resolute. They began to strengthen their military presence across the stars, fortifying strategic outposts and ensuring that their fleets were ready for whatever came next. Humans weren't just waiting for the inevitable conflict. They were preparing for it. The military knew they would be tested again, and this time, they would not be caught off guard. In a quiet meeting aboard the command ship Sovereign, Captain Carter gathered with his senior officers. They had learned to expect the unexpected, but the coming days would test them in ways they had never imagined. The enemy fleets were mobilizing, the Confederation's forces were moving, and the Zeteri Empire had sent their most dangerous general to watch their every move. "This is it," Captain Carter said, looking out the window at the stars stretching out before them. "We've already made our mark. Now we show the galaxy exactly what humanity is capable of." The officers nodded in agreement. They had already proven that they could win battles against overwhelming odds. But this time, it would be different. This time, they would face fleets that had more experience, more firepower, and more resources. But humanity had something that none of the others had: the will to win at any cost. As the fleet began to move out, Commander Lee, one of Carter's most trusted officers, approached with a report. "Captain, the Zeteri are on the move. Lord Velgar's fleet has been spotted on the outer edges of our sector. He's not here for diplomacy." Carter's jaw tightened. The Zeteri had come to make a statement, and it was clear they weren't coming to negotiate peace. "Let's make sure they understand exactly who they're dealing with," Carter said, his voice firm and filled with determination. "Prepare the fleet. We're going to give them a warm welcome." The countdown had begun. The rising tension between the factions was now on the verge of erupting into all-out war. Humanity, once underestimated and ignored, was now standing at the center of a galactic storm. And there was no going back. As the fleet prepared for the battle ahead, the question on everyone's mind was no longer whether humanity could win, but how much the galaxy was willing to risk to stop them. The stage was set. And this time, humanity would fight not just for survival, but for its place among the stars. The first clash. The stars gleamed above as humanity's fleet moved swiftly across the dark expanse of space. The crew aboard the Sovereign and its allied ships were ready, their nerves steeled by the knowledge that they were about to face their most powerful adversaries yet. This Terry fleet, led by the infamous Lord Velgar, was closing in on their position. Humanity had already surprised the galaxy once, but now they had to prove that their success was no fluke. They had to show the galaxy that their victory over the alien armadas had been no accident. They had earned their place among the stars. Captain Carter stood in the command center of the Sovereign, watching the Red Elves closely. His hands hovered above the controls, prepared for whatever came next. The bridge was quiet, every officer focused on their duties, anticipating the coming confrontation. "Captain, we're within range of this Terry fleet," Commander Lee announced, breaking the silence. "They're not slowing down. It's clear they've come for us." Carter nodded. "I'm aware, Commander, but we won't be backing down. Humanity doesn't run from a fight. We face it head-on." His voice was calm, but the weight of the situation was heavy in the air. The Ztari were a fierce race, known for their brutal tactics and overwhelming strength. Lord Velgar, in particular, was a legend among the galaxy's militaries, respected and feared for his ability to lead his forces with deadly precision. But humanity had something the Ztari couldn't understand, the ability to adapt and improvise in ways that no one else could. The comms officer spoke up, her voice trembling slightly. "Captain, we've received a transmission from this Terry fleet. They're demanding our surrender. They say humanity is not equipped to handle the consequences of defying them." Carter chuckled darkly. "Tell them we don't surrender. Humanity fights until the end." There was a moment of silence on the bridge, as if the entire ship was holding its breath. Then the tactical officer spoke. "Captain, this Terry fleet is powering up their weapons. They're preparing for battle." "Let them come," Carter replied. "We're ready." As the Terry fleet closed in, the battle began. The first salvo of fire from the Terry warships lit up the void of space, streaking toward humanity's fleet. The Sovereign and its ships swiftly maneuvered, evading the incoming fire with precision. Humanity's ships weren't as large or as advanced as the Ztari's, but they had something far more important: the will to survive and the ingenuity to fight against all odds. Carter's hands were steady as he gave orders, his mind calculating every move. The Sovereign dodged another volley of enemy fire, the ship's engines roaring as they surged forward. The battle was intense, the sound of weapons fire filling the comms channels as explosions rocked the space around them. Humanity's ships were nimble, darting around the larger Terry vessels, evading shots and striking back with calculated precision. The Terry fleet retaliated, their larger ships firing massive plasma blasts, attempting to break through humanity's defenses. But Carter's fleet was agile, and they fought back with a ferocity that took the Ztari by surprise. The smaller, faster ships of humanity's fleet darted around the enemy's guns, using their speed and unpredictability to avoid the heavy fire. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to prove they belonged. On the Sovereign, the battle raged on. Commander Lee's voice was steady as he relayed information. "Captain, we've taken damage to the starboard side. We're going to need to make evasions or risk more hits." Carter's face was grim, but his resolve was unshaken. "We'll keep moving. Don't let up. We can't afford to lose momentum." This Terry fleet was powerful, but they hadn't anticipated humanity's ability to adapt in the middle of a fight. The tactics they used, constant, unpredictable maneuvers, were throwing off this Terry's aim. They had expected humanity to fight with conventional strategies, but humanity wasn't conventional. Carter's fleet was playing a dangerous game of cat and mouse, but they were doing it with the precision and courage that had made them so dangerous in the first place. As the battle stretched on, the first signs of wear were visible in this Terry fleet. Their larger ships were slower, their weapons less accurate. Humanity's speed and adaptability were starting to wear them down. Carter's fleet was relentless, and as the battle continued, the Ztari began to retreat, their confidence faltering. "Captain," the comms officer said, her voice filled with disbelief. "This Terry fleet is pulling back. They're retreating." Carter's eyes narrowed. "No, they've underestimated us. We're not finished yet. We're going to show them exactly who they're dealing with." He pressed forward, pushing his fleet toward the retreating Terry, determined to make them pay for underestimating humanity. The battle wasn't over yet, but it was a sign of what was to come. Humanity had fought back and survived. And now, the galaxy was beginning to take notice. As these Terry ships vanished into the distance, Carter looked out at the stars. This victory was just the beginning. The galaxy had been shocked, but humanity was just getting started. The stage was set for the future, and now, the galaxy would know that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. And for the first time, the Zetarii and the other factions were learning a crucial lesson. Humanity was no longer the underdog. The galaxy's reckoning. The retreating Zetarii fleet had barely disappeared beyond the horizon of battle when humanity's ships began to regroup. The air on the Sovereign was thick with tension, but also with an undeniable sense of triumph. The crew had just dealt a significant blow to one of the galaxy's most feared and ruthless factions. Captain Carter stood on the command deck, staring out into the void where the battle had just unfolded. It wasn't just the tactical victory that had everyone talking. It was the fact that humanity had done something that no one, not even the Zetarii, had expected. They had stood their ground against an overwhelming force, using their wit and agility to outsmart a race known for its advanced technology and overwhelming firepower. For the first time in history, humanity had proven that they were not just another species to be dismissed or underestimated. Commander Lee approached Carter, his voice filled with respect. "Captain, the fleet is regrouping. Damage control teams are already in place, and we've sustained minimal casualties. We've done it. We've taken down the Zetarii." Carter nodded but remained silent for a moment, reflecting on the magnitude of what had just occurred. It wasn't just a military victory. It was a statement to the entire galaxy. Humanity had risen from being an insignificant species to becoming a force capable of taking on the galaxy's most fearsome warriors. They had not only fought for survival, they had fought for respect. And now, the galaxy had no choice but to notice. The comms officer interrupted the moment of reflection. "Captain, we've received a transmission from the Zetarii. They want to negotiate terms." Carter's brow furrowed. The Zetarii wanted to negotiate, after the humiliating defeat they had just suffered. It was almost laughable. But Carter wasn't one to miss an opportunity. If the Zetarii were finally willing to treat humanity as equals, then it was time to set the tone for what was to come. "Put them through," Carter said. The screen flickered to life, and Lord Valgar appeared, his usual imposing presence somewhat diminished after their defeat. His voice was cold, but there was a tremor of uncertainty in his words. "Captain Carter, humanity, it seems our forces underestimated you. We are willing to discuss a ceasefire and negotiate terms for peace." Carter's eyes gleamed with quiet confidence as he leaned forward in his chair. "You've made the right choice, Lord Valgar. But make no mistake, we didn't just win because of luck. Humanity is a force that will not be intimidated. If you want peace, it must be on our terms." Valgar's eyes narrowed, but there was nothing he could do. He had already lost too much face in this battle. Humanity had proven itself, and now the galaxy would have to come to terms with the fact that the human species was no longer a fledgling civilization. They were a new power to be reckoned with. The transmission ended, and Carter stood up, his thoughts momentarily drifting toward the future. The battle had been won, but this was only the beginning. The galaxy had no idea what was coming next. As the fleet began its journey back to human-controlled space, Carter took a moment to look at the stars outside the viewport. It had been a long road to get here. For centuries, humanity had been the underdog, struggling to survive among more powerful and technologically advanced species. But now, they had proven themselves. They had earned their place among the stars. The Sovereign and its fleet were symbols of this new era. an era where humanity was no longer seen as weak, but as a force of nature. The galaxy had just witnessed the first spark of humanity's rise, and nothing could stop it now. "Prepare for departure," Carter ordered, his voice firm. "We've made our mark on the galaxy today. Let's make sure they never forget who we are." As the fleet engaged its warp drives and slipped into faster-than-light travel, the human ships disappeared into the stars. The galaxy was on notice. The day had come when humanity had proven that it was not to be underestimated. The Laughable fleet that the galaxy had once mocked had become the most feared fleet in the universe, and the message was clear. When humanity's fury is unleashed, even the greatest of empires could crumble.